The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job's just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Welcome to the After Party, a TSF Network podcast, a mixtape of purposeful, encouraging, and fun content from across all our shows who are part of our podcast network. I'm Heather Cook, head of advertising and partnerships.
And I'm Mandy Hernandez, the project manager. We are glad you are tuning in today, friends. Today's episode is from the Unexpected podcast with one of our dear friends, Hannah Love, and it's called Faith, Family, and Career with her husband, Shay Mooney.
This episode is all about Hannah and Shay, how they dive into some awesome ways to begin the new year, not only as a married couple, but also as parents, how to balance family, career, takeaways from 2023, and we discuss the busy year ahead. It's a good one, y'all, so enjoy.
Welcome to Unexpected with Hannah Love. It's a new year, babe.
It's a new year.
I thought I'd put a poll out last night. Probably did it a little too late. We didn't have as many questions as I'd like to, but I've got a healthy list of things we can run through. But we are going into the year, and I actually wanted to do an episode where we sat down with a fam. But as we know, Branson didn't happen this year. Not yet anyway. Weather and illness struck. So instead of sitting down with a fam bam, I am going to sit down just with you, talk about stuff for the new year, talk about family, talk about stuff that we do and practice in our lives, and just a healthy way to kick off our year and our marriage and our family. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That's what we're going to be talking about. Hopefully this mic is working.
Yeah. You
found this mic. We've got a real hodgepodge
of things
set up here,
going on here.
But I think it's working.
Handheld.
I'm looking at audio being recorded.
That's promising.
But I digress.
Okay.
I'm using a lot of new words. Digress is one of them.
That's fancy.
Yeah, it's the first time I've used it this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got about an hour before we have to pick up Asher from school. So let's get going.
We're going to get right in. And I think what you just mentioned a while ago is a good place to start. Because I think as couples, you know, a lot of people ask us, how do you guys juggle everything at once? And, you know, we've got tour coming up, all of these things at once. How do we prioritize our marriage, our family time, and all that? And I think you touched on it a while ago, but one thing that we got to do a couple weeks ago, or whenever it was that we sat down, we try to do this every year and kind of have a husband and wife meeting together ourselves.
Actually, that's allowed. This is the first year we've done it. We've had good intentions years past, but this is the first year that we actually sat down and
wrote it down. We've had the discussions in years past,
and we wrote it down. We basically sat down and did goals for the year, but more than goals, we kind of did these listening prayers and just said, Holy Spirit, what do you want from us this year? What do you want in our marriage? I think you've got your notebook there. You can share a few of we wrote it down. So you've got the exact questions that we asked, and we just did some listening prayers and listened for what we felt like Holy Spirit was saying to us, for each of us, and for our marriage and for our kids in the new year.
Yeah. I don't know what I wrote down in there or the questions, but I think the main goal that I'd like to talk about is how important you think it is to do this, to sit down and to actually, you know, plan out your goals and ask God, like, all right, what is this year supposed to look like? And I think that is, like, dive into that as far as, like, you know, why it's important to do that and to sit down while I try to open this notebook that is leather bound.
Okay.
Bolted.
Do you want me to hold your mic, or you got it?
I think I got it. We're going to see.
Okay. No, that's so important. And I think writing it down is important too. Sorry that I made you do that. My handwriting's not that good. But, you know, the stats prove that things are statistically more likely to come to fruition if you put pen to paper and write them down. And so that's why this year I was like, let's write them down. And that way at the end of the year, we can come back and see if we adhered to what we felt like we were supposed to be putting first in the year, and what God is calling us to if we did good or if we didn't do good, or if we got to see his hand working.
I did this on December 22nd, so this was right before Christmas. But going into the new year, I did write down a lot of my goals for this, what is now this year. And some of those were less time on my phone, more communication with Hannah, read my Bible, and or a book for at least 20 minutes every morning and night. Main goal is to lead our home in 2024. And that's been a big thing for me, is just leading and making sure that I'm the one that's kind of leading the charge in all of these things. But that's kind of what I wrote down. But I'm also I wrote down for a few days, actually, of the year. I'm not good at journaling, but I try. But this one's pretty good. If you want to hear an excerpt.
Excerpt. Wow. Are you going to read me an excerpt?
Yeah, this is a pretty good one. This was December 23rd. Sitting by the fire with Hannah. She's looking extra spicy today. She's most fun when she has a bit of an attitude. Boys are playing in the playroom. Hannah is looking at Facebook Marketplace at everything from mini Lux cabinets to Polaris Rangers. There is even a military truck in there. As I write this, I realize how horrible my handwriting has gotten. Wow. And my goals for that day were patience, slow to anger, read 20 minutes, and talk to Hannah more. That's what I wrote down there.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be something that is
groundbreaking.
But I do think that, writing something down and having a goal in mind is very important.
I agree with that.
And just thoughts, because I know, reading that back, that's very funny to read. That was what was on my mind that day. You were looking extra spicy, apparently.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, I think also one of the biggest things for me to come in, I know that we're kind of all over the place here as far as what we're talking about, because I think you have that written down actually there. But I see it here. My main goal for 2024, and these were just some things that we wrote down of asking God, what do you want for our marriage in 2024? And some of the things we wrote down were lighting the way for our boys, into the darkness, leading with light. And I think that my main word, this is 2 words, but is slow down.
Yeah. That was your word for the year.
That was my word for the year. And, as we come up upon 2024 and all that holds already, it's a little daunting to even look at the schedule.
It's pretty overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming because we've got, the tour coming up at the end of February. For me, and I know that's like this for you, I often get very overwhelmed with looking at the schedule.
We're not schedule people. We live by the schedule.
Yeah.
But one of the fun things that we say around here is that we just go by what we're told, kind of, which is terrible. But especially when you do what you do in an industry like this, a lot of things are mapped out a year, 2 years in advance even. Routing is already mapped out. You've got teams of people who have planned all of these dates. I usually don't know where you are day to day.
I usually don't know where I am when I'm there.
So I think it gets really overwhelming for people who are not type A, to know that ahead of time your days are already planned in advance for you, especially when you're a 7 on the Enneagram, so you love fun and excitement, and you love having something to look forward to. But when it turns into something that you feel like you need to do, it's not necessary. It's a job. It's not necessarily amusement parks every weekend.
Yeah.
And mostly I think at this point in our life for you, the sad part is missing home, missing family.
Yeah.
When you are gone,
and the healthier that our relationship has gotten, and just our relationship with home, and this now being very opposite of what it used to be, as far as me coming home to rest. When I was on the road, it was that's almost, I don't want to say it was my happy place, but it was my escape. Yeah. But now that being very opposite, being in a very healthy place of when I'm away from home for a couple of days, I start to really resent whatever it is that is taking me away from home. And I think that that's a very normal thing, but my goal is to really take things slower in every aspect of not looking too far ahead, because you'll never be able to live in the future. Because when tomorrow gets here, it'll be today, you know, and you can never live in those moments. You can look forward to them, but taking each moment as they come
Being
and
present.
not stressing about that,
Sure.
you know, that is what I struggle with the most. And it's not bad to look forward to things, you know, because that's part of my personality is, you know, finding, you know, little moments of like, oh, I can't wait to do that. But it's also about really managing those expectations and feeling like, okay, but right now is really amazing, and like just enjoying those moments as they come rather than looking forward to them. And there's two sides of that coin too. There's looking forward to stuff and there's also dreading stuff, which I can get. That's my biggest stressor, I think, is looking ahead and being like, oh, I got to fly to LA, or I got to, you know, do these things that I really don't want to go do.
And it may not even be the thing itself. But
No, it never is.
It's just the getting there.
It's the travel. It's the
and-
whole situation of like going and
Right.
being away.
And it's kind of like having homework, you know, when you like, you remember like school or college and you're like, man, I've got a paper due Tuesday. And if I could just get that paper done, but then you have another paper on Thursday, and it just kind of like in your brain, you just never
Yeah.
have like
You start to stack these papers up mentally, and it's like having a to-do list a mile high on your desk
Yeah.
that you're like, I don't even know where to begin with this to start to process it. And I think that is really just the only way to, and I've been doing a lot better with it, as far as not really stressing about things that we have in the future. I mean, there were so many anxieties, especially on like the last tour we did, where, I mean, besides just the overbearing obvious elephant in the room of having COVID around, you know, and that being just a thing. And we were kind of the first to go out and do it. And there was always something with that. That was always like,
they were
a
one
stressor.
of like very few, like a handful of people that went out during that time.
Yeah, that actually finished. I mean, it was something like, you know, there was 50 tours that were supposed to go out, and we were one of 9 that actually finished it.
That's crazy.
Which is wild. But there was always something with that to like stress about. But in the midst of that, you know, Dan and I have talked, you know, very in depth about this, about how like, you know, we were not in a healthy place, and it was, the tour was just us like trying to get by, which is sad now to look back on, but it was just like everything was coming at us so fast that it was like, you know, in our personal lives, in our relationship with each other, on all accounts, it was just like everybody was just kind of holding on.
Well, when you're on a roller coaster and the momentum picks up, all you can do is hold on until the thing slows down, right?
Yeah. And we were just not in control.
That was our life.
That was the feeling of just not being in control. And what made me sad was that tour was so incredible. And I just remember that last show that we had, like walking off stage and like being pretty bummed out, even though it was like one of the best shows we've ever played, you know, and it was like, I hate that for us, but that's also like, you have to
that's life
not
and that's
regret that.
learning.
Yeah, that's life. And now I'm just very thankful that we have this opportunity now to go out and to do it again and to go into it. And both of us are in a really good place. And so that is like, I'm very excited about that.
Well, I think, not to cut you off, but I just wanted to tie in that a lot of people actually ask about boundaries and about balance. Balance is the right word. Just in balancing tour, marriage, God, like all of the, I mean, they're all like, you know, big parts of our lives. That's what our whole lives revolve around. So the balance of how do you do that and be healthy? And I think we've lived through a lot of years of doing it not so healthy. And then we've been really candid over the last couple of years about some of the stuff that we've gone through in our marriage. And that was like personal life mixed with your schedule and like career life. So if y'all didn't catch those, there's a 1 episode and a 2 episode. And last time was about your health journey and how that's really bled into where we are now. And the fact that we're even sitting down talking about, we prayed through our new year and we're going to listen to what God wants for our new year. And these are the things that we're going to try to apply to bring balance to all aspects of life. So I'm really proud of you for that. And I'm proud of us for all the work that we've done.
I'm proud of us as well.
Not to plug us, but
not to plug us, but to plug consistency
and discipline.
And discipline. I think that the biggest thing probably that I've learned through all of this is learning, obviously having consistency in your life, you know, no matter what that is, even if it's something small, like, all right, I'm going to get up at this certain time, or I'm going to put down my phone at this time, like whatever it is, it just having those boundaries. And it's like boundaries probably isn't even the word for what I'm talking about here specifically. It's really more like making sure that you have those routines set in place. Like, all right, this is going to happen every day.
Right.
Like little things that we do. Like I go to the gym every day. We both go to the gym and it's like, it's a little thing, but it's an hour of our day. And I know that every single day, no matter what, even if I don't feel like it, like that's where we're going.
Right.
And I think setting those things in place that are kind of anchors throughout your day and throughout your week, it just starts it changes the whole routine of what you're going to do for the next, 6 days of your week.
And making sure that those little things are things that are healthy and will benefit you, not only you, but your family.
Yeah.
Because going to the gym, I mean, it's a blessing that we're able to go and that we're healthy. But our kids are seeing that. Our boys are seeing that. They're seeing daddy get stronger. And you're doing this because not only is it helping you physically and it's going to help you be here and around longer for the kids, but you're setting that example up. And there's also crazy stats about like a boy's life and like how much longer a man will live based on the physical health of his father.
Yeah.
And so those feel like small choices to get up and work out 1 hour a day, but you are impacting the life of all of us.
Yeah.
You're impacting the way that you lead us, the way that you're showing discipline, and the way that our boys are going to see you living your life. And that's the model that they have to go by.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I've been reading a bunch of, I don't want to say I'm reading a bunch of books, but
he's reading a really important book right now. Tell him what book you're reading right now.
I'm reading a book by Dr. James Dobson, which
we love Dr. Dobson.
I've grew up listening to like Adventures in Odyssey, and which he created. But I just a really great, has a lot of great books about parenting and fathers in particular, and the impact that they have on the home. And obviously there's all different kinds of, there's so many, single moms, single dads, there's all kinds of variations of, how you raise a child, and, not knocking on, any of those. It can be done, in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
But looking at, the impacts that fathers have on their kids is wild. I mean, there was a stat in there that he was talking about.
And the book is called Raising Up Boys. Raising Up Boys.
And it was talking about a big promotion where they went into prisons, and for Mother's Day, they did this promotion, and it was like, you can write a letter to your mom for free and we'll send it out, and the whole deal. And they had and don't quote me on the numbers here, but I think it was like 200 and something thousand inmates that sent letters to their mom. And it was a huge success, the main point. And it was such a success, they had to go back and get more letters. They had to go back to the factory and get more cards and all these things. And it was just a big success. And so they were like, let's do a repeat of this on Father's Day. This would be amazing. And not one single inmate sent a card to their dad. And it was
it's really sad.
And it's just the statistics just, line up with that, with all different kinds of things of, if a boy doesn't have a dad to look up to, there are all kinds of things. Father figure doesn't have that in his life. There are consequences that show themselves throughout history. You can just look at, the history of the world. And since they've been collecting statistics, it just lines up, when a father's not in the home. And it's just and it just, all that to be said, it really showed me of, our boys are watching me very closely. And a couple years ago, this would have been a very overwhelming thought, because it was like, it's not fair, and I was just in this very feeling sorry for myself kind of mentality of like, I was just not in a good place. But now that I'm, looking back and moving forward, and I've really been pushing myself and, to be a better father. And I think the main thing that I had to ask myself is, what do I want for our children, and what kind of future do I want for them, and what am I showing them? Because they're obviously listening to us, but the main thing for fathers out there, like, they're watching us, period. It's not like 90% of the stuff, and I'm throwing that is not
that's not a real
stat, but it's like, just to say a lot of percentage of the things that they learn are not just you telling them stuff. They're just simply watching you. Yeah. And I have watched that good and bad play out in our kids' lives. I watch it in Asher, and I watch it in Ames. And like, when I was in a much healthier place and some of the, with Ames, and I see some of the things that he deals with much healthier than Asher even does, because Asher didn't see me doing that, and handling it. And obviously I'm dealing with the repercussions of that, and moving forward, we've really been working on that, with Asher and stuff. But it's crazy how much they learn through just your behavior and the way that you react to things. And that was a very sobering thought to me moving forward of just like, what do I want them to learn? Because if I want them to learn this, then I have to do it myself. And so that was just a kind of kick in the pants of like, I have to do these things if I really want this future for my boys.
Right.
And so that's been the biggest factor because, obviously, I had this career to look after and that I really, I do respect that, and I know that I've been given something that no one has, being able to have a career and get to do it with one of my best friends in the world and get to do that is incredible, and I'm very thankful for it. But when you start to dive into trying to really be a healthy dad and being there, it's like everything else takes a backseat, and it's like, but I also think that, for the boys, like I really want them to see as well, like, working hard and chasing after your dream, that is also important. And so I also want to make sure that I am putting priority on my career and my relationship with Dan and all these things, making sure that is also at the forefront of like, hey, this is very important to Dad, and working hard is important, and showing up and doing the things that you were, that you said that you do is very important. And that's what I'm really proud that like Dan and I have gotten to this place where like, we both have a common goal. We might not agree on everything, but we have a common goal and we love what we get to do. And working through all that, I know that like Asher and Ames and Abram, they're going to see that even if it's further on down the line of I'm really proud of the work that Dan and I put in, to be able to continue doing this band in a really healthy way and in a bigger way. Like I'm very proud of that.
Yes.
Because that's,
you should be.
I feel like as I was getting to a healthier place, it was kind of like, oh yeah, like the band doesn't matter. I was trying to tell myself like, the band doesn't matter because I've got my family and all these things. And like, that is true to a sense of like that my family is the most important thing. But I think it is also very important to show your kids like also hard work, and doing these things and having a career is important to Daddy for this reason, know, and I think that it's important to show them that I also work hard in that, know.
I feel like this is probably a good place to say this is an encouragement, maybe to the millennials out there. I saw a stat, again, I don't know the number, but it like really struck me that there were some researchers that went out and said that millennial dads are more hands-on than any other generation, than any past generation of dads. And honestly, yeah, like that, if you'd asked me this a couple of years ago, I might've been like, no way, because that was just where we were. But across the board, I can see the work that you've done, but I can also see the work that parents our age are doing. And I don't know if that's just a general, more of an awareness that we have now of like the impact that we have on our kids. Like we're all becoming parents or have been parents for a while, and we're doing the work in ourselves. But I'm just really kind of blown away at that statistic. I mean, that's every generation in the past that we have on record, right? That you guys are becoming more hands-on. And I also think that plays into like how much the workforce has changed. Yeah. People they don't have to be at a 9 to 5 job. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that go into that. But I think
the overall awareness that I think one of probably the main things that's like a contributing factor would be this generation, like our generation and the generation kind of behind us. It's really hard to not see a bigger scope than our parents did, just because, I mean, social media, there's good and bad things that come from that. But I think that there's like this realization of like, man, the world's nuts. It's crazy. It's crazy out there. Like you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that being aware of more things at once, that's one good thing that comes from that, is kind of this realization of like, okay, I have to get this together and I have to put my priorities like where they really, lie. Cause you have, and also I credit our parents as well. Cause I think that, we always say this quote of, your ceiling is your child's floor. Mm-hmm. And I think that, some of the work that, like I think about my dad, I have an amazing relationship with my dad, but I spend way more time with my boys. I get to, and that is a very unique situation. Like I have I am so lucky to get to do something that like I love every single day. But my dad loved, construction. He, grew up, he has a construction company, and I did that all growing up. And I spent a lot of time with him. It wasn't that I didn't spend time with him, but he worked a lot and he was gone a lot. And I think that he was not able to spend as much time at home as I get to, which is obviously such a blessing. But I think that what I learned from that was my work ethic, and working hard and seeing him do that and see him treat people right, in that space and be very respected in that community. He has a lot of regrets of like, I wish that if I could go back, I wish I could do this, but he wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had to be able to come to Nashville and all these things of like,
right. You want more for your kids than you had for yourself, right?
Course.
That's every parent.
And I think that, us being in this position, and a lot of us in our generation, is credit to the hard work that our parents put in. And so I don't want to say that they just didn't realize it then. There just wasn't really the option to be home more, but I just think that, there is a sense of that, of the realization of the bigger picture being able to be seen a little bit easier nowadays with social media and all the craziness. But along with that comes just a myriad of other problems. You
realize that to an extent you're competing with the world for the ear of your child.
Yeah.
It's your voice versus, the world's voice. And right now we live in this bubble where our kids are small and they only hear what we say to them and the people that we allow them to be around and the school system that we allow them to be, in. And those are all choices that we make specifically and we have to pray about because let's be honest, the church and the school and all of these outside entities are just supplementation of what they should be getting at home from us first. Because if we don't fill them with the truth and with knowing who they are and reiterating that, then when they get out in the world, it's what so many adults face today, every day, even us, we're grown. And if we let it, the world's voice can become so loud that we get lost, we get confused, we get distracted, and we forget who we are and what God says about us.
Yeah.
Like it's deafening. If you just step foot outside, and by outside, I mean like open up your phone and start scrolling. You can lay there for 4 hours a night. I've done it. And you kind of come out of it and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so for this brief window of time, we have the honor and the privilege of getting to mold and shape our children according to like what God asked us to. At least that's what we're trying to do.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I think the biggest thing for me is like,
finding peace in that.
That's why I think that, being in a healthy place ourselves, we can genuinely say like, obviously our kids are going to go through their own search for the truth. They're going to go out there and they're, everybody does, that you have this moment in your life where it's like, yeah, this is what your parents said.
Right. But now I'm going to figure it out for myself.
Yeah. I got to figure that out for myself. I was always that way.
Yeah.
But now something that I can really say with conviction is like, I've been in the highest of highs and the lowest of lows and experienced these things, but I've never, you can believe in God or you can not believe in God. That's, there's people out there who obviously have their own beliefs on everything, but there's something that I could never deny when it came to God, whereas like, I will never find peace like that. True peace. And I've tried everything. I've tried alcohol. I've tried, all these things where it's just like you try to quiet the noise of your head. And it's like, I've never had peace like this than just being in a healthy place and having a relationship with God. There's no other replacement for me. And it's like, if you don't believe me, like try it yourself. You can knock it and say that's crazy and you're wild for even believing in God. But it's like, I don't
What's
care.
there to lose?
Yeah. What do you got to lose?
It's kind of like, Jesus Revolution. You see this whole generation of kids that are searching and, there's all these psychedelic drugs and they're just like trying to find something.
Yeah.
And And that was kind of how the Jesus Revolution was born because
people were asking questions.
They were asking.
They want to know.
And they wanted that peace, and they were chasing it in all these different ways.
And these things sound like crazy sometimes that's what like...
It does, but history repeats itself.
100%.
And so here we are, and I feel like we could be on the brink of another revolution, of an awakening of this generation, because I don't know in the history if there's ever been a generation that's been more lost and more inundated with the noise of the world.
Yeah, which is a great transition into what, another thing on our list that we talked about was noise.
Yeah.
And what we mean by noise is like anything that distracts you, distractions. And there's just so many distractions. That's another
and it can
goal
be
of
good.
mine.
I mean, distractions, they can be disguised as good things.
Yeah.
But if those things are taking the place of God things, you just might need to reprioritize.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of things that I'm trying to implement this year in my life at some point. And a lot of them have to do with just like my phone.
Yeah.
Of just like this
Same.
mindless, like it steals so many of my hours of the day that I'm just like, man, what a great tool, but also what a dangerous tool that we have.
Yeah.
It's like we're sitting here recording a podcast and recording a video that people are going to watch on their phones. It's like it's such a fine line of healthy information and ways that people can get better. But there's also, in the midst of that, there's just so much crap. And it's like, I don't know. I sometimes, feel guilty because it's like, I'm contributing to that of what people are like probably being distracted by, but at least it's like, it's truth. And I know that it's stuff that,
well, the world's going to put out everything, right? So the bit that we can do, like the part we can play, can be just like putting out there real truth, which isn't my truth and it's not your truth.
No,
it's the only truth.
Here's the thing. I think with this year, there's just so much crazy stuff going on in the world, and it's wild. But all of us, you and I, do not have all the answers.
No.
But I think that sharing things that have personally impacted us, which everything we've talked about today is things that we have seen have changed our life. I mean, my life completely changed a couple years ago. And it's wild. Like I stopped drinking, and that was not really even my intention to be like, I'm going to go fully sober.
Yeah.
But here I am. Like I've had like, a couple glasses of wine in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's coming up on 2 years this summer, which is just like
amazing.
It just flies by. But it's not like, I wasn't even trying to do that, but I just found that getting rid of that distraction, getting rid of that thing in my life, what that bred were so many good things. And it was just, I don't know. I think that it's really important for, people though to hear kind of our story and what we've been through, because, we're just trying to lead a healthy life and find peace and find truth. And we want to be really, I think the biggest thing for me is you want to find peace in the moments.
Yeah.
Because I think that everyone's like, oh, we can do this, and you get these things in place, and we can start this, and we can do this company, and we can start this business, which we can get excited about. I mean, the Moonies, we'll get fired up. We're dreamers. And I think that making sure that, and all that stuff is fine. I think it's a blast. Like, you and I have talked about wanting to renovate a house for fun, like do these things that are, not only just like investments, but we think would be really fun.
Sure.
But there's also
the flip side.
Yeah.
And
of the time.
Of the time. Well, and this is I think my thing for the year is God is really calling me to like come deeper, but also wisdom. Like that just keeps popping out to me. And I just want to make sure that everything I do, I do it with wise choices and with discernment. And even like the house thing, I think, we could do it. And if you want to like write a pros and cons list, it's like we have the resources, but do we have the capacity? Like we literally could do it, but what would that cost us in terms of our time?
Yeah.
What would that cost us in terms of like our stress levels with like making more decisions when we already have a loaded year? Like, is that the wise choice when we have 3 littles?
Yeah.
And like short time with them. So it's just that stopping and asking, that's major for me in the last couple of years. It's just been stopping to say, hey, I should pray about this. I should ask Holy Spirit, like, yes or no. And like the more you work that muscle, the easier it is to hear that voice of like, maybe that's a wait right now. Like not a no, just like a pause. I mean, we've got some
Well, we're going to stand by for the hurricane that's coming outside.
One thing I do want to ask you, or I do want you to talk
Before
about.
I fly away.
Yes, before you fly away. Is I have a lot of women who ask about relationships, ask about husbands. And one thing I'm so thankful for you for is your transparency. And you've been really honest and vulnerable. I think for a lot of men that can be hard to be vulnerable about things that paint you in not the greatest light, but you've done that. And I think you've changed lives, and I think you will change lives because of doing that. But I've had a lot of women that ask, like, how do you make your husband lead the house? You know, and that's not I couldn't make you do anything. And if you go back and you listen to parts of our story, like, I truly had to come to a place where I gave that and you to God, and you had to make that choice. But I think a lot of women want to know, what can they do to spur their husbands on? Because hypothetically, their husbands are working hard. They're working 9-to-5 jobs. They're coming home. They're tired. They don't have energy to play with their kids. They don't want to be nagged about taking out the trash and doing the work that, you know, the moms, like, they don't have the energy to do the outdoors. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I think there's a pretty easy answer to it. I think
How do you get there is my question.
I think you get there by yourself, for one thing.
Yeah.
Take that with a grain of salt. I mean,
you get there with God.
You wouldn't have been able to get me there, convince me to be a better leader or to get my life together.
There's nothing I could have said or
There's
done.
nothing that you could have said or done. I had to come to that place. And I think that there's obviously, like, you know, there was a couple times where I was just like, I really felt like, dang, I'm not doing a good job. And that was like, I could tell because, you know, you didn't tell me in words, but like, I knew I was not doing a good job. And I think that weighs heavy on a dad. But it's just really hard because you would just hope that obviously their, wife would be, prayer is a big one, because I think, I have a praying mama and a praying wife, and I know that influenced it. Because that, ultimately I had to hit this rock bottom moment to be like, I can't continue on this path because I know where it leads. I've been going on it for a long time now.
Right.
And I had to get to this place where it was like, choose, like either go this way. And, I don't want to use heavy words like divorce or like, these things that are scary, but it's like, that's where that leads. I know where that's going.
Like, would you say that you would write a pros and cons list and say, what's the most important thing to you in the world? Like, what do you value more than anything else?
Yeah, I think if the wife did that, it's a little like...
No. I'm not saying the wife. I'm saying for husbands.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, if they honestly sat down with themselves, wrote out a list and looked at it, and then said, now, what has to change to make that a reality?
For sure. And I think that there's, it's really tough to say for like, different situations with different people. I think for me, like, you never gave me necessarily an ultimatum, but I knew that there was one in place. You know what I'm saying? If after time, it was like, you can't,
well,
I knew it was going to happen.
Wasn't an ultimatum. It was the reality of, if you keep living this way, I will continue to distance myself from you.
I just knew the ultimatum being, I knew what the result would be, and it would just be furthering us, like not being close.
Right.
There would just be more problems. I knew where that road led, and it's like, I didn't want that. And I feel like most husbands, they don't, I can't speak for all husbands, but I just know that like, there's a point where it's like, you start asking yourself really hard questions of like, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to keep doing this and feeling like garbage, and knowing that like when my wife is ticked off at me, knowing that it's warranted, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell yourself, you can feel sorry for yourself for like a while, but you get to this place where you just kind of feel like crap, and you're just like, it only goes one of two ways. I either like go and I can live this life and be an immature, like, with no good decision making and like just continue down that path. You can go that way, or you're going to need to make some changes. And I think that was, kind of where I got to, where it's just like, I know where this road is leading. Like, I can't keep doing this and keep feeling this, like having no peace, and kind of turning to, I don't want to say that I was an alcoholic, but I think that was like one of the things that I used to like
cope. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it was also at a time when it's like our tour got ripped out from us. There was like a lot of
There's a lot
stuff,
going on.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I also try not to like harbor guilt toward myself and like resentment toward that side of me. But there, you know, that's how I felt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I had the decision to make whether or not to just like, I could stay that way and feel sorry for myself and go down that road, or I knew what I had to do to change.
Right.
And it started for me with just my physical, like, all right, I know that, you know, me drinking and turning to these things, I know that that's not helping. It's making it significantly worse. I can't sleep.
Right.
My anxiety is through the roof. I'm having panic attacks. It's like, all right, let's maybe try not doing that, you know, and I pulled that away and putting discipline in my life and replacing the things that were not helping with things that helped.
Right.
And it was like, I think that is kind of the biggest thing for people trying to look, you know, make a change. And ultimately I'm trying to answer your question as far as what wives can do. But I think that someone, when they want to make a change, they think, okay, I'm going to do this, and then everything will just, you know, be okay with the world.
Right. No, it's like losing weight. It
has to be very
incremental.
And if you think of it like this, this like kind of changed the way that I thought about really everything. You're either going one direction or you're going the other. And I don't mean that
1 degree off.
I mean just like you're either getting better or you're not. And there's not like, you're either consistently getting better, and whatever happens in between there, like I screwed up and, you know, ate the wrong thing for a couple nights, like, but it was like, I was going this way and that was it. Like it's only up from here. Like I'm going to work out. I'm going to get my life together. And it was just, sure, there were variations, but once you have those disciplines in place and you're going the right direction, it could be 1% better. If you get 1% better every day, you're getting better.
I mean,
it's not a complicated thing where it's like, just get a little bit better. Make this decision.
Right.
Make one right decision. You're gonna make some other ones in, you know, you know, that are not so good. But the difference in that is like my life before was like one bad decision after another, and even when I did one good decision, you're either going this way or you're going up.
You verbalized to me one time that it was overwhelming to you, like the weight of it, of changing, of doing better, of even. Because for me, we had that conversation of I didn't go into this wanting to be the leader of our family, right?
Yeah.
And so for you, and I just kept clinging more and more to the Lord and to the Word and like leaning on that. And I think it made you a little resentful. And also you told me that it made you feel overwhelmed, like you couldn't live up to that, and so you didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other people, and they say, "Gosh, that really that resonated."
Yeah. Because it's a tall order,
right?
To look at where you're at and then to see where you want to be, and you're just like, for a lot of guys, it's like, well, I can't do that.
She's doing great.
I can't get there.
She's doing fine, so let's just let her do that.
Yeah. And it just becomes this overwhelming thing where you just like, rather than fail at that too.
Right.
I'm going to just give up. Because I think guys, especially men, can get to that place where it's like, well, if she thinks I'm a piece of garbage, I might as well really
be a piece
give
of
it
garbage.
a run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like obviously not healthy, but I just think a lot of guys feel that way where it's like, you know, you get to this place where it's like, well, these are unrealistic expectations that you're putting on me.
Right.
And so I'm just going to go the opposite direction of where you want me to go.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it's really tough because if I wouldn't have decided it for myself, I don't think there's anything that you could have said to change my mind until I got to that place where like I was on the up and up and I was like, okay, how can I get better? Then I can ask you, what are some things that I can do that would, you know, help our relationship and communication? And it's all those things. At that point, your wife you can be, you know, drop your pride and be like, all right, how can I get my wife to pull me up there?
Once you start viewing your wife as your helpmate and your partner and the person that you signed up to literally do life with, instead of the person that's trying to attack you or put you down, because I think even in the early days, part of it was pride, right? I can say that honestly. So everything that I would say, even if it was coming from a place of love, felt like an attack.
Yeah. Because you're embarrassed. And I think men they want to be the leaders. They do.
Well, and that's how God designed it.
Yeah.
And God, if we want to talk about this for a minute, God also designed women to submit to their husbands. And the way I look at that is the woman stands next to her husband. Does, Eve came from the rib of Adam. We came from the side. We stand by your side and we become one. But you are the head and you do lead the family. And I have like a line written in my phone right now for an episode just about husbands and their choices that they make. And naturally, by default, whatever choices you're making leads our family. You not drinking makes me not drink. Not that I was ever a drinker. So whatever your choices are, they're going to bleed down into your wife. So that's why I'm saying even like that's how God designed it. Yeah. You are leading us with every choice that you make. And the desire, I think, of every woman's heart is to have a husband who leads the family. Yeah. I mean, that was the desire of my heart. And then I faced a time a year ago where I had to apologize to you and be like, hey, I'm sorry because I haven't even given you the space to do that. Yeah. I also know that what the word tells us and what God's heart is for marriage ultimately is supposed to point us closer to him in that relationship. Yeah. We, the body of Christ, we are the bride of Christ and he is the groomsman and he'll come for us. And so the what's the word I'm looking for? The institution of marriage is meant to reflect that and to teach us to go deeper, and it's sanctifying. You sharpen me. You cover the places in me where I'm weak, and I cover the places in you where you're weak. And I think that now in our healthier place, we can see that now without feeling attacked. And so now when you come to me and you verbalize something, instead of getting defensive about it, I understand that you're just covering a place in me that you see needs work. Yeah. Right? And you've become so much better at that too. Like I can point something out to you and you're like, I'm sorry, I'll do better. Yeah. Which is like crazy. If you told me that 2 years ago, I'd been like, no, that's not my husband.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, life just gets better too. It's like, I think that, watching over the last 7 years, our relationship and all the hardships that we've had to go through, it's just, there's something so incredible and something incredibly rewarding about working hard on your marriage and really like putting in the work. Yeah. And now it's like, I look back at all like the fights and the whatever like that we went through, and it's just like, what a fun journey. You know what I mean? Like
it feels like it's been
at the time
100 years.
Yeah. But it really sucked at the time. But it's like, now it's just like, I don't know. I have a life partner that we've been through some stuff together. You know what I mean? It's like, I think about the same, with Dan, it's like, we went through some stuff together, but now like being on the other side of it, like what a and how much deeper that connection is, and like how much healthier it is to like have fought and won the battle of ourselves. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's hard work to like admit when you've done something wrong or like work on something that makes you feel gross, because we're all prideful and we all think like, oh, well, I didn't do anything. It's like, well, you did, and you might not have even meant to do it. Like that is marriage. Like that is being like, all right, I didn't mean to do that. But when you start to look back on it, it's just like, it doesn't matter if you meant to do it. Like you made that person feel a certain type of way. Right. And that's wrong.
I think the most beautiful part to me is that our kids, especially Asher, is old enough now to like really see us. And I'm just really thankful that even though he saw a lot and not a lot, but like he saw the unhealthy version of us, I don't think he'll remember a lot of that. And Ames and Abram, like they're coming into it.
They got lucky. They got
and
to
better
see
time.
Better days.
We're not perfect by any means, but just the willingness, I think, to work on hard things and not to run. We're doing it for as much for us as for our kids. We're setting them up so that they know, like again, our ceiling is their floor.
I think to wrap a lot of this stuff up, I think that it's really important, for people that are looking to maybe have a better marriage or just whether it might be, you know, physical, like you want to get healthier mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is, I think that the danger of, you know, trying, like, because we'll go through these things of like, you know, in the new year, like I'm going to have a New Year's resolution. And I think that resolutions, it's not that they're necessarily bad, but like they're always pretty unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves. Not always.
Right.
But I think that some people are like, all right, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to not drink all of January, and I'm not going to do these things. And it's like, sure, that's like cool and healthy, but like, what do you want?
Yeah.
You need to ask yourself, like, what do you want? What is the end goal? Like, do you want to feel better? Do you want to cut down on your alcohol, or you want to cut down on these things? It's like the way that I truly made a change, it was not, because I've done a million times, I've done like the whole 30 or the whole thing. It's like, so you want to lose weight for 30 days, then do the whole 30. If you want to not drink for 30 days, don't drink for 30 days. But if you want to make a change and you're like, I'm going to do this, you make the life change and you say, all right, I'm going to give myself 6 months to do these things and to change my attitude about this. I'm going to change my habits. And if you do that for 6 months, you might not keep all those things. Like if you're trying to stop drinking, like maybe you don't stop drinking forever, but if you give yourself 6 months, you're going to have an answer of like whether it makes you feel better or not. And
it'll also be a long enough time that you're like, I don't really want to go back to that because that was a lot of work.
6 months is a good marker to do anything. And not that you need to put those parameters on like, I'm going to be a good husband for 6 months. You know, I think the point that I'm trying to get across is that if you want to make a change, you don't need to put like 6 months. If you need a number, is a good marker. Right. Because then you can kind of, by the time you get there, a lot of those things a lot of the kinks get worked out. Right. But I just think that you just have to start. Was going to be my original point of just, you have to start with something small. If you're trying to lose weight, if you want to kick off with a whole 30 or whatever it is, like, so be it. But like have plans after that, like have 6 months planned after that of like, this is going to be my kickstart. Whatever it is going to jumpstart.
If you want to know the Bible more, read 1 page a day. Yeah. Like something attainable, something you can do.
Something very attainable of like, you want to work out? Go do literally just anything. Go do something. Go walk, go whatever. And then like that'll lead you down that path of discipline. Because once you can do something consistently, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like you're going to see a change in yourself.
I think for me too, the more important point isn't even like, what do I want for the new year? It's like, God, what do you want from me this year?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's why it was important that this year we sat down together. And of course, we asked God separately our word or what you want from each of us. But also we asked, like, what do you want from our marriage this year? Like, what do you want to see in us?
What do you want from this partnership? Because that's really what it is. Like, what do you want? That's what it is. And it's also, it's not even about us, right? Like the year's not even about us. If we're living for Him, if we're living for the kingdom, then like we need to be asking, what more can we do? Because I want to go to heaven one day and be like, well done. You did everything I sat before you to do. That's what I want. Yeah. And so I love that we started the year that way. I think anyone could do that. We're still like in the first couple of weeks of January. It's going to get so far.
Well, we're going to do it, guys. I love that we started that way. And I love that we intentionally asked about each of our boys too, because what's beautiful about it is each of us got like the same response, like in our hearts, in our spirits about what we need to pray and how we need to pray for each of our boys individually. Yeah. And that's like a guide for the year of how we want to pray over our boys, specifically for them and how we know that God wants us to pray for them. And I'm excited to do that and then to see the fruit of that. So that's an encouragement for married couples to begin their year. And really quickly, I think we've answered a lot of these. So I'm just going to read off a couple and say what we have hit. Said, do y'all set New Year's goals?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we did this year. We'll see where that gets us. Yeah. We'll read those back at the end of the year, see how it worked. 2 versus 3 kids. I mean, I don't want to get into a long thing here. I think I polled a lot of people while pregnant with Abram. So at that point, you know, we were already committed.
Yes.
But I polled a lot of people about the 1 to 2 children versus 2 versus 3. And I heard from most moms that 2 to 3 is nothing compared to the 1 to 2. Because 1 to 2 really blows your mind.
Yeah, you're doubling it.
You're doubling it.
If you think about it in numbers,
Yeah, it's
1 to
50%
2
more.
is you're actually doubling
Yeah,
it.
and then a third one is just that's 33%.
That's 33%. That's no big deal.
Just welcome to the party.
Yeah, and a fourth.
Honestly,
I mean, 25%.
Yeah, I mean,
that's nothing.
Another baby's on here, but
Yeah.
I feel like someone's missing. Like I don't want to stress you out, but in God's time, whatever God wants, I don't care. But I just
Yeah,
feel like
we'll
someone
see.
along the line, you know?
Yeah, I just got my baby weight off,
Oh wow.
and so
Me
we'll
too.
talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little
You lost
harder
it
for
quicker
me.
than I did.
So, okay. I think we've touched on this, but how do we make marriage a priority while Shay is touring? I think I can safely say on my end that that's where a lot of my stress has come from in the last few weeks, because I just mentally know that's what we're gearing up for. It's important for me on my end to make sure that our boys have routine at home and that it feels normal, because our life is anything but normal. So for me, it's like school. I'm not going to jam pack their schedules with like camps and like stuff to fill every hour. I'm not. I'm like, come home, be children. We're still in our precious like baby years. Asher's growing out of it, but I'm cherishing that time and I'm not going to rush it. I'm just not. That's what I can do for them at home. Yes, we'll go out and see your shows that are close to home or close to here or look fun. But no, we don't travel every weekend. I don't want to. It's actually a lot of work for me.
Yeah, I think that
For being
people are like,
honest.
man, you were like, you must like, do the boys come out all the time? And it's like,
I'm like, my gosh,
not really.
have you
First of
ever
all,
packed
the biggest
a bus
thing,
for...
you go see one show.
You've seen all the shows.
You've seen all the shows. You've seen it,
Yeah.
and it's
Just a
like,
different
not that like,
location.
and not that you don't enjoy it.
Like,
but,
I love you, honey, but I'm good.
But you've seen already like 10 rehearsals as well. And so it's like for your
And then
kids,
tack on
it's
that
a lot to go
It's
out
their
there.
bedtime when you even go on. And I'm like, what a nightmare for me, you know?
Some people can do it, and I think it's great.
I think it's awesome.
And I think when Asher gets a little older, and even right now,
Definitely.
if he's out of school,
Yeah.
I'll take him.
For sure.
And he'd pop on the bus.
Oh, and the boys love the bus. They
Love the
we
bus.
actually take the bus to Arkansas in the summers just because it's a good time. But also,
But I think it's also a nice break.
Yeah.
Like when we get in that routine and we're doing it well, I think it's nice because you can because I don't have a normal job. I'm not leaving during the day. Like when I'm here, I'm just here all day.
Yeah. But then
and it's like not that we get sick of each other,
Right.
but like you need a little time to miss each other.
But then for me, I also have to gear up to have, and someone asked if we have help. Absolutely. We don't have family here, which is maybe the hardest part.
Yeah.
But we do have someone that is just like family to us. She's our nanny, but I just call her family, and we love her to death, and our world could not carry on without her. But that's it. I mean, when there's only one of me here and we need to drive for school pickups and babies here napping, like there just has to be more than one bodies in the house. And even for my mental sake, I have to get out and like walk or work out. Like I need that. And so I'm really, really thankful that we do have help. We're really blessed in that. I'm sad that we don't have grandparents that live nearby so we can like send them to, Grammy and Papa's or Nana and Pops. But that's
We're
how
rambling now.
We are, but that's
We're
how we make
rambling.
it work. People ask, so I was just answering.
People ask.
Okay. How have you found other godly couples to do life with?
Yeah, we will let you know when we find those people. No, we actually.
Shay has a Bible study group and I have one, and they're totally separate and they're totally different. Like mine's for women, his is for men, totally different thing.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think that right now in this season of our life,
we're living in a bubble of
frankly,
babies.
we just don't have the capacity. I have like some of my friends that are very close that I see like as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But in all reality, and that's like, just being fully transparent, like right now, trying to get together with other families is really, really hard.
It's really hard.
And I don't regret that at all. I feel like right now we're in this season that like, we're raising our boys and we're having fun here, and we go do things like birthday parties and things. But like, as far as a regular, like
we're not antisocial.
people coming over, like, nah,
we just, it's actually quite hard. Even in this industry, everyone is moving and shuffling around, like to even catch people, in the industry, like in our sphere of like people we know that do the same things. it's like, ships crossing in the night that you even get to see them.
We have good intentions.
Have great intentions.
It's like people will be like, oh, let's get the kids together. And it's like, yeah, for sure. And it's like, well, that night doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get together. And then 6 months goes by and you haven't talked to that person.
It's fine.
And right now it's just tough.
The way I see it, the season of life that we're in, we're living in a bubble, and the true friends, the OG friends, the ones they get it. And you might talk to them once every 3 months, and it's fine because they just love you and they're your real friends. It just be like that sometimes. Okay, the very last thing I want to say is people ask about dating and friendships, and the one thing I will say that is super, super important, even though it's not like we have a raging friend life right now, I'm totally okay with that because I'd rather invest my time in our kids. Yeah. But the people that you keep around you is so important. Yeah. Like the people in our lives, I would rather, I say this all the time, but I would rather have 4 quarters over 100 pennies any day. I would rather have 4 solid friendships, 4 people that I can call in the middle of the night and ask them to get on their knees and pray, and I know they're going to do that. I would rather have a handful of people like that in my life that I could trust my children to, and have that and be secure in that and be like.
Well, you have to know that you become, the 5 people that are around you, or the 4 people that are around you?
Yeah, like the median.
Yeah, you become the people that you
5
spend the most.
That you're around the most.
That you spend the most time with, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was times in my life where I was like, no wonder I was not killing it, Yeah. And I think that is just important.
As a wife, there is a nice way to be like, maybe you could limit your time with,
Sure.
So-and-so.
Sure.
I'm afraid to call an imaginary name because someone out there is going to be named that. I'm really thankful again, babe, that you sat down with me today. We were supposed to have a deep dive family talk. I was really going to get into some topics. But
this was the most unprepared.
It was.
We barely got this set up.
Again, you can probably tell we're not planners just by this interview.
Yes.
But I did want to sit down, and I'm thankful that you're always willing to sit and be vulnerable and share. And again, if you haven't caught the first episode and the second episode, Shay and I start at the beginning of how we met, the first few years of our marriage, and then the second part is really your health journey, where that began. And
this is just an update.
And this is an update. This is just part 3, and we'll probably have 4 or 5 or something down the road. I don't know. Okay.
It was a lot of fun to be able to sit down with you.
Yeah.
I love you. I'm proud of you. Here's to getting 1% better in whatever we do every day. Onwards and upwards, 2024.
It's going to be a great year.
Let's go.
All right, party people, if you're interested in hearing more from Hannah and her show, just look up Unexpected with Hannah Love in your favorite podcast listening app and hit that follow button for more episodes.
And while you're at it, make sure to click follow on the After Party feed so you don't miss an episode. Join us back here tomorrow for another episode. Bye!